Welcome back to Ripple Effect Connection. I'm your host, Kristi Hujik. Today's guest is someone I've admired for years, not just for her accomplishments on the course, but for the way she shows up in life. Cindy Miller is an LPGA Professionals Hall of Fame member, former LPGA Tour player, and part of the only married couple to play on all 4 major golf tours. She's also a certified expert in behavior and performance and just so happens to be the mother of a dear friend of mine. In this episode, we dive into her brand new book, Take Another Shot, in Golf, at Business, or Life, where she shares 18 life lessons that go far beyond the game. Whether you're chasing a dream, recovering from a setback, or just wondering what's possible, this conversation will inspire you to dig deep, smile, get honest, and get ready to take your next shot. Well, it's very rare that I have a guest who crosses over in both worlds that I kind of navigate in, which is golf, but also too, I love the fact that we're going to talk about a lot of things about the mental health and mental makeup and how important that is to success. So I welcome you, Cindy Miller, to the first appearance here on Ripple Effect Connection. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Kristi. It's great to be here with you.
And it's good to catch up. And I say this almost every podcast. The regular listeners are sick of hearing it, but I always love that it's a good excuse to talk to people who I respect, who I probably don't get to talk to enough anymore. So I love to use that excuse. So you and I are going to talk a lot of different things today. We're going to do our best to keep it as condensed as we can, but I know that there's a lot we're going to get into here. I want to start with golf, and I want to start with how you got into it and how did it become a staple in your life?
I didn't like golf. My parents played golf. They dragged me to the country club every weekend, and the pool was my babysitter. And I kind of got fat in 8th grade, and the cute boys at the pool called me 10-ton Tessie. And so I quickly found an aversion to swimming, and my only other choice was the golf course because I was trapped like a rat with no cheese. And I started to play golf, and my dad got me lessons, and the pro said, oh, she could kind of be good at this. And I'm a competitive control freak lunatic, so then I started to like golf. That's how.
You've achieved a lot. I like I said to you last night when we were talking, you've achieved a lot in everything you've done, but you started out not liking golf, and then you ended up, for those of that may not be as familiar with your journey, where did you kind of take us through the steps of where you ended up in your career and all the things you achieved by the end, especially? And I don't say the end, that's the good thing about golf. There's never an end to your playing career, really, when you can still play. So kind of take people through kind of your path to success through golf.
My mom and her friends, when you play golf and you're a junior at the country club, and the women, most women, there's a witch at every club, or 2 or 3. They didn't want me to play in their tournaments. I could play with them as long as I was on their team. But when you play against them and you beat them, they don't like you. So I couldn't play in the club championship till I was 18. And then I kicked their butts, dropped the mic, and then I left. But my mom and her friends took me to an LPGA Tour event when I was 17, and I saw Laura Baugh play. And I saw the pretty shoes and the outfit and the golf bag with her name on it. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I'd like to kick her butt. And I came home and said, oh, I want to play on the tour. My dad said, okay, that's great, but you've got a 14 handicap and you're not good enough. So I wrote to the Ben Hogan Golf Club Company and Golf Digest magazine, because I played their clubs and I read their magazine. And I said, are there any colleges that have women's golf teams? So it's kind of like writing to Santa Claus, thinking they're going to write you back. And it was a couple weeks and no letter, and a month or so and no letter. And then 3 months later, I did get a letter back, and they had a list of schools that had college golf teams, because this was a long time ago and there was no internet. And the one that stuck out was the University of Miami. So I wrote to them, and they wrote back and they said the worst girl on the team has a 5 handicap. So for those who aren't golfers, the lower the handicap, the better. Mine was 14. They were 10 shots better than me. So they said you could be a walk-on, which you can come down and try, but you'll probably never play. And my dad said, okay, you've got 1 year to earn a scholarship, or you're going to have to come home. And I never visited the school. My parents never took me to the school. We had a family friend who happened to live at the beach, who was a captain for Eastern Airlines, who lived in Coral Gables where the school was, and said, at the end of the summer, we'll just drop her off at her dorm when we go back to Coral Gables. So they did. And I sat on the bed in my dorm room and cried. And then I found a friend who I knew was going to go there, who was recruited. She took me to the coach's office and I said, "Hi, you said I could be on the team. Is that true?" And he said, "Yeah." And I ended up graduated the #1 player on the team. We won back-to-back national championships my junior and senior year. And that started it all. And then I qualified for the tour. I lost my card after 3 years. So of the best in the world, I was the worst. And again, that started the process of being told you're not good enough. And someone of my personality, when you're told you can't do this, I just like, watch this, baby. So some people just shrink and give up, but I just fight for, I'm going to show you what I can do.
Yeah, and I think obviously that's going to be a theme throughout what we're talking about today, and you being able to pass that message on to others, because it applies not just for golf, it applies in every facet of life, which is why I like this. And it's, people can look at the podcast and say, "Oh, well, I don't really care about golf." I always tell people, don't really look at the overall subject. Look at the material involved in someone's journey, and it doesn't matter whether it's sports or business. The success messages are going to come. You don't have to play golf to get something out of your messages. So I want to toot your horn a little bit, though. I've not known anyone I know who's gone in 2 different Hall of Fames in 1 year. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where you had your induction at Miami, and then you had, you're also now, we're going to get into your teaching career, but you're also going in as one of the top LPGA teaching professionals in the world. So obviously you've translated success at every level. So where did teaching fall into this, and what's it like to go into 2 different Hall of Fames in the same year?
It was so weird. And it's funny because I didn't want to teach. I wanted to play and I wanted to be a superstar. And one of the things, I'm really teachable. And when I went to Miami, I was a sponge. I would sit and watch, like I would go to Doral where Eddie Bush was teaching, and Joanne Carner would come down and she would take lessons, and Mr. Bob Rich from Rich Non-Dairy Creamer in Buffalo, which is funny because that's where I'm from, and he would fly his private jet and take lessons, and I would just sit and listen because I knew I wasn't good enough, right? So I would listen. What are they doing that I'm not doing? And Bob Toski was teaching, and I would listen to Bob Toski teach, and I remember trying to be the 5th player on the team when we were going to nationals in Hawaii, and I'm like, I'm going to Hawaii. I don't care I'm going to be the 5th player to go to Hawaii. And so that was my junior year. And I was always fighting for the 5th spot, even though I was on scholarship at that point. And I would say to him, I don't have enough money to pay you for lessons, but I'll do anything around this driving range. I'll pick up balls, I'll sweep the floor, I'll do whatever I have to do. And I don't know that the kids are that willing to work that hard to get something that they want. What's your giver meter and how bad do you really, really want it? And so he just saw the willingness to work and the resilience in me. And so he helped me. And then I ended up qualifying to go. But again, I really wanted to do it. And then I qualified for the tour. I played on tour for 3 years. Of the best in the world, I was the worst. But I would sit behind Kathy Whitworth and Joanne Carner and just watch. And they go, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm watching you." "Well, why?" "Because I want to learn something." So Alan and I met Alan Miller when I was at the University of Miami. And Alan's like a student of the game. And at this point now, at that time, I wasn't certified in behavior and motivation and personalities. Way later we did that, but I call Alan the nerd because some of us read directions and some of us don't. And I don't want to read directions. I don't want to practice either. I'm a brat, right? And so Alan was a student of the game. He's the second purest ball striker Dave Pell's ever tested. He hits the ball really straight, and he likes to hit balls and swing good. I don't want to swing good. I want to win, which is why I'm not still on tour. But anyway, when he quit playing, he said, "I want to teach." I'm like, "Teach? I don't want to teach. I'm going to want to slap people." And he said, "No, this is easy." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's easy? It's not easy. I'm trying my whole life to be good." And he said, "No, let me help you understand it." And when he explained it to me, it was like, it is easy. Where were you when I was 15? I would have been better had I known all this. And so when he explained it to me, I Cindyized it, or dumb blonde it, if you will. Like, oh, I just got to start the face straight and bring it back to straight. I don't have to do all this other stuff and keep my head down and lock my arm. And it made it so simple. He made something so complicated so simple. I then, because I'm so competitive, when somebody comes into my office, which is a 4x4 foot mat or a patch of grass, I kind of look them in the eyes and I say to myself, I'm going to make you better than you ever thought you could be, because I'm so competitive. So now I love teaching people because they've all had a bad experience. Anybody that's played golf for 10 minutes knows how hard it is. So why do I like teaching? Because I know I can help you. I absolutely know. If you want to get better, I can help you get better.
And you're called the fairy golf mother. I mean, what a great nickname that is. I mean, that's a nickname if you're involved in golf that anyone really could only dream of. Who came up with that?
Well, somebody came up with it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Boop,
Yeah, it is
I'm gonna
cool.
touch you. Boop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So I was wondering, like, when you have a student, okay, let's say, how are you able to help the student who maybe their competitive nature and their hard work, their desire to work hard doesn't match yours? How are you able to still get something out of a student that you're working with?
You mean they don't want it as bad?
I would say, yeah, maybe their drive doesn't match yours. You know, they want to hit the ball better, but they don't want to win. Because I think the hardest thing as a coach that I've had to deal with and had to learn was, how do I coach people who aren't like me? Right? Those are the hardest people to coach, because I can coach people like me because I get it. Right? But how do you coach people that aren't like you?
So I say to them, what would make you happy you came today? When you leave here, I want you to get in the car and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I went there. I spent that time and that money with Cindy. And they say, I just want to get the ball in the air. Okay. I don't want to be embarrassed when I go play in that company outing. Okay. So when they hit it and they hit it yucky, I'm going to say, okay, let's think about that. Why did the ball not go in the air? Because you hit the top of the ball. Why did you hit the top of the ball? Because you were looking at the top of the ball. Who told you to look at the top of the ball? Well, everybody says look at the ball. Well, you're looking at the top of the ball, so you hit the top of the ball. What if we looked before the ball and we brushed the grass? Oh, so now, we're going to put it on this little tiny tee because we're inside and it's Buffalo in the winter and we're in the snow. So now we're going to look, the tee is only this high, so the grass is this high. Now we're going to put a piece of paper on the mat. Now we're going to put the club behind the garbage. Now we're going to try to scoop the garbage. We're not going to look at the ball. No, we're going to look at the garbage. Now we're going to, so I make them think differently.
Yeah.
And then they get the ball in the air. So again, you got to meet them where they're at and you got to understand. So that's part of the personality stuff. And you're just making them think differently. It's okay that they don't want to win.
Yeah, I love that, because there's so many pearls in that. But it's like, how you get from point A to point B might be different for somebody else. And I do think that's why you're so good at what you do, is because you are able to do what you just said. You simplified it. You're able to meet them where they're at, and that's how you get success out of your, whether it's me health coaching someone, me coaching someone in basketball, you coaching someone in golf. I mean, that's the way we have to do it. If we all try to coach everybody the same way, it's not going to work.
No.
It's not going to work. So I love that. I want to get back to you and your lovely husband, Alan. You mentioned how you guys got started and just a match made in heaven, really, with the two of you, and just how perfectly your worlds fit together. I want to also let people know that Cindy and Alan are the only married couple in the world who have competed on all 4 major tours, which is the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, PGA Tour Champions, and Legends Tour. Did I get that right?
You did.
Did I get that right? Okay. And so I want to know how that relationship worked through all this. And I know with what you're willing to share with your journey. Alan's journey, I'll also preface it with this. Alan's journey was myself and my co-producer, Dom DeStoli. We did a show on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio last year that you can find on demand, actually, if you want to listen to it, called Worth, the Alan Miller story. And we thought Alan's story was so inspirational. And my goal for doing the story was that hopefully it would also be therapeutic for your family. Because I think sometimes the way we process these things and the way the body holds on to them is so important in overall health and well-being overall. So my goal was like, yeah, sure, I want people to listen to the show and I want to help others, but I also wanted to help the Miller family. So what you're willing to and can share about Alan's journey and kind of what you've all been through as a couple, what you're willing to share, because I think we can help people by sharing the story.
Oh, God, yeah. So Alan, again, it goes back to personalities, and I don't want to cry. I'm tearing up now. But It's so important with kids, and we teach a lot of kids. We were the Under Armour league directors for the Buffalo tour, and we did it for 4 years, and I couldn't do it anymore because so many parents think their kids are going to play on tour when they're 5, and I'm like, stop pushing your kid. You're making your child crazy. And so Alan's dad, push, 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 push. When he won a PGA Tour event, he's like, okay, now you got to win another one. He never really even said congratulations. And Alan's dad was the same kind of personality as me, and Alan's Mr. Chill. So there's 4 different behavior styles. There's a high D, which is a competitive lunatic like me. There's a high I, which is a party animal like, hi, how are you? Let's go out. And, which would be like Lee Trevino. And there's a high S, which is a steady chill, which is Alan. The guy's never had a speeding ticket in his life. And then there's a high C, which is very detail-oriented, dots all I's, crosses all T's. Bernard Langer is at yardage from the front of the sprinkler or the back of the sprinkler. So if you're a tour player and you are shy, quiet, you don't want to go to a pro-am party. You don't want to talk to people. Well, you have to go. So Alan started to drink for liquid courage because he didn't want to talk to people. Well, you have to go and you have to talk. Well, then he started to drink more and he becomes an alcoholic, which I kind of knew, and I was a party animal. I'm from Buffalo, that's what we do. And so when he quit playing, we started to teach. Well, when you teach and you're not a superstar, now we're teaching in a public driving range in Buffalo in a cement basement, and I'm not making excuses for him, and nobody knows who you are, but you've had dinner at Bob Hope's house and you played in the Masters 5 times and you were #1 amateur in the world with Lanny Watkins, you start to feel like a piece of crap. And so I almost think he was allergic to it because he could have 1 drink and I'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? And so there came a point where I'm like, you got to go. You either got to quit. And so we went through this nightmare of years. So I finally said, you got to leave. So he leaves, he goes to his mother's house, he tries to commit suicide. His sister walks in just before he does, thank God, and they Baker Act him and they put him in a mental hospital. And part of me wanted to kill him anyway, right? To be honest with you. And so he was in the mental hospital for a while. He comes home. He went back, started to drink again. Then he committed himself to a mental hospital up here. He was in there for another 3 or 4 weeks because he knew he was down in the dumps, he's depressed. He doesn't know what he wants to do. And thank God he did that. And then that was 1996 and he hasn't had a drink since. Well, then he was so depressed. He gets fired from his job. We got 3 kids. I'm spinning plates. I have an embroidery business. I was making shirts for Augusta National for the Masters. I'm teaching golf lessons. We got 3 kids. Kelly's babysitting for the kids, sewing shirts. I mean, it was a freaking nightmare. And trying to spin plates, I filed for divorce. I mean, it's all on the YouTube, whatever, on Sirius XM radio where they can find the story. I mean, it's a great story because it ended well. He turns 50. He gets in the first PGA, what's it called now?
PGA Tour Champions.
Yeah. He gets in the first tournament. He shoots like 74, 73, 73, something, and he hadn't played in 15 years. I mean, the guy can play golf. That's what but he didn't want to play golf for superstardom. He didn't want to be a superstar. He's shy. He's quiet. He's a golf swing technician. He's brilliant, but he's so opposite of me. So again, anyway, so I file for divorce. We go to divorce court. The judge and his lawyer make me out to be the witch. Basically, I lose the divorce. 6 months later, he comes home. Then they say, oh, do you mind if he lives with you? I'm like, what do you mean if he lives with me? I thought we were divorced. So he's laying on the couch. He's depressed. He finally goes and he starts teaching at Nike golf schools. Bob Winters, who's a psychologist, calls him up and says, come and teach at these Nike golf camps. So Bob Winters gets him to start hitting balls, which is why he started playing PGA Tour Champions, which again, it was all God. I mean, no offense, but God was helping him get better. He still hasn't had a drink since 1996. He comes home and I said, I would have never done this. I still love you. I mean, neither one of us was cheating on each other. We're golf buddies, right? And I said, did we ever get divorced? Did you ever get the papers? No, I didn't get the papers. Did you get the papers? No, we didn't get the papers. So I call my lawyer. I go, are we divorced? He goes, well, did you go sign the papers? I go, no, I didn't sign the papers. And Alan says, did you sign the papers? I said, no, I didn't sign the papers. So I said, call the judge and see if we're divorced. The judge goes, well, they never signed the papers. I go, what happens if we don't sign the papers? He goes, well, then you're not divorced. And I go, okay, we're not going to sign the papers. So we're not divorced. And that was 1998. So we're not divorced. So again, am I glad we shared the story? Of course I'm glad we shared the story. And we've done this with multiple people and multiple speaking engagements. Why? Because we need to share the story that you can change your lives if you make the right decisions and choose to look in the mirror. So the it box, which I don't have one sitting here, but we got this it box. What's in the box? A nail, a mirror, and a seed. You got to get off the nail, stop whining, have the courage to look in the mirror and plant a seed and do something about it, which is what we did. We changed our lives, and we've been married for almost 44 years.
And I mean, you've done that really in everything you've done.
Yeah. Stop whining.
Maybe it didn't go the way exactly you wanted it to go.
Has it been hard? Yes, it's been hard.
Yeah.
But shut up. Get off the nail. Look in the mirror. Cindy, you're a control freak witch.
Yeah. And look, we all have those things too. And the thing about it is what I see on my end, as a health coach, is that these things can manifest into later times in their lives. It can manifest into illness because your body is just holding on to the trauma. So to me, the more it can be processed in whatever fashion that is, some people will go do EMDR, some people will go do talk therapy. There's a lot of other methods in the health space that people can use. I've seen something like frequency-specific microcurrent, which is literally just being hooked to something that looks like jumper cables to 2 wet towels, one at your head and one at your feet, help soldiers process PTSD. So there's a lot of tools out there. So like my message to your message would also be that we need to be able to process these things in some way, shape, or form, because when you hold on to them, that's when they grow into an animal. And so that was, again, my goal. The story had a great happy ending because I love you guys to death. And I'm great friends. Just to preface it with everyone, the reason why Cindy and I got connected is because her daughter Kelly is one of my dear, dear friends who I met at the Golf Channel. And so Kelly and I have been connected for years. And I wanted to be able to do this. To me, I was trying to do something for the Miller family. Yes, I work for SiriusXM, but I also wanted to do something for the wonderful family that I've gotten to know so well. So I truly appreciate your willingness to share the message, your willingness to talk about it. I am sure 100% that Alan doing that stuff is therapeutic and helpful for him. So I think that it's great that you share this. And I think that your fact that you share the messages you do, and can you talked about the nail, the mirror, and the seed, which is part of your book, which actually ties into us doing the story with Alan. So we are connecting dots here and making this all come full circle. So how did the book idea come about? Tell people why you wrote the book and what the book consists of so that we can all run and get a copy. I still have to read the whole thing. I'm going to full confession, I haven't been able to do it yet, but I will read it. So if you can just explain to people all that and the connection with Alan and that story, I think that would be a great way to tie it together. So
I had started to write the book 10, 15 years ago. And telling my story, because my parents were both alcoholics. My father used to beat the crap out of my mother, and I had started to write this story. And I hired a literary agent. I wrote a book proposal, and the guy sent it around to all the big publishers, and they all said, oh, this is a great story, but she's not famous enough to write the book. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to write the book. So I put it away. Then Dom comes to the house, and Alan's very shy and quiet and very, introverted. Dom comes to the house, and the first thing he does is he shows him a video from the 1969 Walker Cup. They go in the playroom. Dom tells me, go upstairs. You can't hear anything we're talking about. I'm like, oh, okay. And Dom was at our house for 10 hours interviewing. Alan comes out, and he goes, you can't believe what Dom's got. Dom's got a video from the 1969, Walker Cup. And he's like, so excited. I'm like, is this Alan? And right there, Dom and Alan are best friends. I've tried to get this video for so long, you can't believe it. So now this is great, right? And I'm like, because Alan has got the guard down, right? And so I had given Dom the 3 chapters. And Dom goes, this is really good. And I go, Dom, help me write the book. Because I'm thinking, okay, we're going to share this story with the world. This PGA Tour Sirius Radio is going to do. Dom goes, I don't have time. He gives me, somebody's name to write the book. And I'm like, it's too close to Christmas. Christmas Day, I got an email from a guy on LinkedIn. He goes, hey, I read your bio. Have you ever thought of writing a book? The little voice goes, maybe this is a Christmas present. So I have the thing. I have a call with the guy. Kelly has a call with me. I decide to write the book. So the book is called Take Another Shot at Business, Golf, or Life. There's 18 chapters, 18 holes. Every chapter is a lesson that I needed to learn to be successful. And now, the funny thing is, the University of Miami Sports Hall of Fame, I had to give them a little grief because it was 50 years ago that I was a walk-on the golf team. And now I'm being inducted in their Sports Hall of Fame, which only makes the story better, right? Hi, it was only 50 years ago. How long did it take you? Bam! But it just makes the story better because, I just started to write the book, and then the LPGA Teaching or Professionals Hall of Fame. But anyway, so the book is called Take Another Shot at Business, Sport, Golf, or Life. And Dom was instrumental because Dom wanted to do the story. So then I thought, okay, it's time to write the book. And the book just came out May 9th, and it's available on Amazon. And all these stories are instrumental. And it's really cool because a lot of the people from Buffalo, like Chris Cook from New Era Cap, Dave Cook helped me when I was, my dad died and I needed a sponsor. A New Era Cap helped me. And Delaware North, the guy who owns Delaware North, Jeremy Jacobs, he owns Boston Bruins. They helped me when I was little. It's just a really cool story and book.
It is. And I'm gonna share a couple things with you and let you elaborate on this. And I know I'm gonna try not to keep you over your time here, but I want to get a couple more things in if you're willing to stick around here for a few more minutes. I was speaking with Kelly a little bit back and forth about the interview today. And I love Kelly because she thinks like a producer, right? So I have an advantage. So I can pick her brain about things. And certainly I've always heard this from her. But your book is called Take Another Shot, okay? Multiple times in your life, you've taken another shot. And Kelly, what she said in her text to me was, I'm so proud of her for pushing through when most people would quit. So explain what motivated you to take another shot multiple times throughout your life. I got deep on you there. I got deep.
I'm not sure. You know what? When I was sitting in my sweatshop, and you know what's funny? I didn't want to start an embroidery business. I went to learn how to make cute clothes for my kids, and they were selling a $2,000 sewing machine. And, why would you buy a $2,000 sewing machine to learn how to make cute clothes for your kids to save money? Stupid move. And Alan said, oh, let's pray about it. And Alan would never say, let's pray about it. So we go to church that Sunday, and there was a stand-in minister who was a home ec teacher. Come on, you can't make that up. So I go, we're going to get our answer right as soon as church is over. So I say, hey, have you ever heard of the sewing machine company? Oh, yeah, it's the best sewing machine company in the world. Okay, so we bought the $2,000 sewing machine. So then I felt guilty, so I bought a book on how to machine applique. So I learned how to machine applique, so I felt guilty, so I got a machine applique, so I start making shirts. So I called my buddy, Cindy Booker, who I played the tour with, and I said, hey, Booker, she was selling shirts in Naples. And so I didn't try to make shirts, but I said, hey, I'm making these shirts. I want you to sell some shirts in Florida. So she sells some shirts in Florida. $35,000 worth of shirts later. I'm wholesaling shirts with collars in them. She goes, I need logos on the shirts. I go, how am I going to do the logos? She goes, you know that guy that owns the hat company, New Era Cap? Have him make the logos. He sells the logos anyway on the hats. Okay, I go there. Logos. I say, hey, Alan, let's send some shirts to Augusta. You played in the Masters. You know the head pro. We send the shirts. He sells shirts. He goes, hey, I love these. They sold in 3 days. 144 dozen shirts later to the Masters for Augusta for the Masters. I'm sewing shirts. Did I try to do that? No. So that's one time. Now I got a store downtown Silver Creek. Am I trying to do that? Then he says, Cindy, you're a pain in my butt. Buy a 2-headed embroidery machine at $38,000. Now I got a store in Silver Creek because I bought a $2,000 sewing machine that I wanted to make clothes for my kids. Ridiculous. Then as I'm sitting in the store, I'm reading the paper, I see, oh, there's a Legends tour. I'm like, I'm kind of tired. Maybe I want to play again. I can't believe Lopez shot 85 one round. She made $3,000. I could shoot 85, and I'd love to get paid $3,000. So I call him. I go, hey, can I play? Where do you sit on the money list? Oh, I sucked. Well, you got to qualify. You're not good enough. Oh, all right. Well, can I start playing? So I go play in a Futures Tour, which is an Epson Tour event. in Connecticut. It's pouring rain. It's 45 degrees. I'm leading after the first round. They go, "Who are you?" "I'm from Buffalo. I'm an old lady." They thought, "Is your daughter playing?" "No, I'm playing." So I'm leading after they're like, "Who is this old lady from Buffalo who played when it was 45 degrees and pouring rain?" Right? "Oh, that's me." So then I get an email from the Golf Channel. "Oh, there's a big break 3, ladies only." And the little voice goes, "You want to win a Legends Tour event? You should apply to be on this show." "Well, I don't want to play on the LPGA Tour." "Yeah, but we both know you want to win a Legends Tour event. You probably should apply to be on the show so you can learn how not to choke your guts out. Because we both know that if you were standing on the 18th tee, tied for the lead, with thousands of people watching you, having to hit a shot over water, you'd puke and choke your guts out." Good point. I apply to be on the show. I forget that I apply. They call me 3 months later. "Hey, do you want to audition?" I go, "Well, I don't know. Where is it?" "Well, it's in Orlando on July 31st. "Well, I don't have to work that day. The flight's, $200 round trip. I could stay at my brother's house. I go audition. They choose me. I do the show. I come in third. The next tournament after the show, I don't have to, I always had to qualify. Now I get a sponsor example because everybody knows who Cindy is, Mama Miller, right? So guess what happens? I birdied the 17th hole in the last round. I walked to the 18th tee, tied for the lead, having to hit a shot over water with thousands of people watching me. I knock it on the green and I two-putt. I'm tied for the lead. The same thing that happened a year earlier when I got that email. So tell me God's not watching over me. I ended up not winning. Somebody birdied 17, but what's the moral of the story? I defeated my demons.
Yeah.
So sometimes that little voice is saying, go do this. Go prove to yourself that that dream you had when you were 17 years old to be a star on the LPGA Tour isn't going to be a nightmare that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. So you got to have the courage to take another shot at business, golf, or life.
And I think the fact that you have been able to do that, and again, this message applies to, whatever you're trying to do. And it's really just pleasing the one critic who matters the most too. It's yourself. It's not really about the outer people, what they expect you to do or think you're going to do. It's about you. It's really about you. And the outside noise doesn't really matter. I think people are going to really benefit from the book. I think there's no way in a 30-minute podcast I can tell the entire Cindy Miller story.
No.
It's impossible. So I try to give everyone little bits and pieces. You're invited to come back at any point in time. So before we go, what I want you to lay out is there's a lot to do here because you have a lot of different ways you can influence and be a part of people's lives. So I want you to lay out, if you can, how people can get the book. I want you to also let them know how you can be a speaker, maybe at an event or at their business. You do that. You do events. They can take lessons from you. So if you want to lay out how all that looks and how people can contact you, we'll make sure that info gets out there.
Well, go to Amazon, take another shot at Business, Golf, or Life, Cindy Miller, and email me, cindy@cindymillerinc.com. I would love to help you, whether it's at your golf game, do a speaking event, corporate training, and have the courage to look in the mirror, get off the nail, look in the mirror and plant a seed. Again, it really, it gets me because, again, there's something in your heart that tells you I was made for more. And now I can't believe the response that I've gotten from the book because, again, I didn't write the book about me. I want to encourage people to do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes it's scary, but I'm so glad I did it. We sold hundreds and hundreds of books. Just, and again, it's not about me. Kelly kept saying, what are you going to give them? So at the end of each chapter, there's a nail, a mirror, and a seed. What are you going to do about your life? What about courage do you need to do? What about resilience, resourcefulness? What can you do? So again, take another shot on Amazon, Cindy Miller, and then cindy@cindymillerinc.com. I would love to help you. That's my mission from now until I croak.
And I know, again, you're also involved with another podcast that you're a co-host of. So as one podcast person to another, I want to give you a chance to promote that podcast and what it's about if people want to connect with that.
The Women of Golf.
What do you guys talk about?
Women playing, whether you're a coach or a teacher or a tour player. We have players from the Epson Tour on every week talking about their struggles. How hard is it to become a tour player? And the funny thing is, once they seem to relax and not try so hard and grind their guts out, they all end up playing better, like most of us. Once you take a chill pill and realize it's okay to be me. And we all have gifts and talents. It's just like that person. Sometimes we try too hard to win. You and me, we're both grinders, right? Mm-hmm. And once we relax and realize it's okay Take a chill pill.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the person I think of who exemplifies that quite a bit this year is Madison Keys in tennis. You know, she tried so hard to win for so long and then finally had to do the mental side of things where she just was okay with herself, whether she won or not. And then what happens? She wins.
Right.
You know, she wins the Australian Open. So she's an example of that too. And I love, you know, professional athletes just help get the messages across and the stories across. So it's an easy way to deliver the message. And when you know someone's been through the rigors of being a pro, you respect already their struggles and
Absolutely.
what they've gone through even more. And I think that's important. So I appreciate your zest to help others. I know where you are on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is kind of how I feel and why health coaching and coaching others is so important, you know, to me. So I certainly respect all that. I love that you do it. I hope you'll come back on the podcast because you and I could talk about just about anything. So
anytime.
You can come back anytime. And I love seeing you and thank you for sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
You too. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for listening to Ripple Effect Connection. If you enjoyed what you heard, we'd love to hear from you. You can connect with any of us on social media and let us know what resonated most. You can always find full show notes at kristihujik.com/podcast. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, review, and share the podcast with anyone who might benefit. And a quick review on Apple Podcasts goes a long way in helping me bring more amazing guests your way. Stay tuned for the next episode of Ripple Effect Connection. Together, let's create waves of change.